Okay, here we go. I should put the microphone someplace. What are we going to sing? Keep going, but it's not a concert. We've got to start the lesson. So welcome to Aryeh and Meir. My guitar is staying? Stay. And to Zahava and Katie and Yael, Baruch Hashem, and my mother watches every week, and Shana Batsheva, and Avital and David, everyone else that joins us later. Shalom Aleichem to you. And I have to say, I really missed giving the class, even though the concert was lovely upstairs. Really something very special, really beautiful. I think we were some of the only paid people in the concert. Most of it was, half of it was his family. And I said to Yosef Goodman, you know, I'm like one of the few paid people there. He's like, no, I bought tickets for my whole family to his own concert. That's a good one. It was really beautiful, though. Okay, so I want to do a little overview of the lesson before we start, and I guess a pre-lesson. There was a guy who came to me in shul this morning, and it was a couple of days ago. He was very depressed, and it's somebody that is very lonely. And I know that lonely, like men that are divorced or widowed or just never married, and they get to be older and older and older, and there's no one around, and they don't have, like what I have, a wife and family and action. So they need physical contact, like actual physical contact. So I tell them to come to me, and I give them a hug every day. It's like, give them your coupon, and you get a hug. And so this is one of my huggers. So it means like he's really in a bad place. And he said to me, everything's going wrong, everything's terrible, everything. So he said, what's the secret? So I said, the secret is 3 things: Emunah, Bitachon, and Simcha. First, you have to have faith in Hashem. You have to know that Hashem is running the world, and that everything that happens to you, for the good and for the bad, it's all from Hashem. Bitachon is going out into the world and acting upon that faith, living that faith, allowing that faith to inspire you to live a life without fear and without stress. And Simcha is the vessel, the joy is the vessel that allows Hashem to send you the Shefa. So when Hashem sees that, first of all, you acknowledge that everything comes from Hashem, you act in a way that you know that everything comes from Hashem, and then you're joyous, even though things are difficult. Hashem says, that person, I can send them bounty, abundance. So I told him this a few days ago, and he comes to me today for his hug in the morning. And he says, it's working. He said, it's working. I can't believe it. Everything's turning around for me. So he said, when Hashem sees you dancing in the mud, in the rain, and you're broken, but you get up and you say, Hashem, you're not going to beat me down, then Hashem says, this was the whole purpose of creation. For you to push back against the natural world and have total faith in me. And that's essentially what we're learning in many of the lessons here in the Likutey Moharan, and just wanted to share with everybody a practical application of what we're learning, so that maybe somebody else could use it. I certainly use it, and it's not easy. I'm studying now Shara Bitachon, which is, you know the book, yeah? Chabad put out a version of it recently, and Noga was very excited. She has this size. I got the one that's this size. And every night I sit and I learn for sometimes an hour. And it really helps me a lot. So, Bezat Hashem, we should all merit to have bitachon, emunah, and simcha. So, we're learning, of course, from lesson 30, Lamed, in the Likutey Moharan, and I kept thinking, I'm going to shorten the lesson, I'm going to just summarize sections of it, but I realized as we slowly crawl our way through it, and there isn't that much left, I don't think, no, we got just a little bit left, that everything has its place and every part of the lesson is important, so we're just going to go through it. Then I have a plan for the next lesson after that and the one after that as well, Bezat Hashem. But I just wanted to give a very quick summary of the lesson. So we're talking about speech and our connection with Hashem, and how what we say and how we say it matters. This was actually a conversation that I was having with two of my kids last night that were very angry at one another and abusing one another. And I told them what you say and how you say it, it matters. And also to Hashem. So we know that there's a power of speech, and our faith, our emunah, is connected to speech. The things that we tell ourselves and the things that we tell Hashem. And I face this, like personally I face it all the time, but many people come to me and ask me for advice. I'm going to turn this off just for now. If you get cold, you tell me. I think it's warm in this space here. So there's a guy who stopped coming to shul, for example, a different person. And it's been a few weeks since he came to shul, and I said to him, what's going on? He said, no, I'm too depressed, I can't come to shul. So I thought it was amazing, because I said to him, who do you think is preventing you coming from shul? The Yetzer Tov or the Yetzer Ra? The good or evil inclination? And he didn't answer me. And of course it's the Yetzer Ra. The Yetzer Ra, that's how the Yetzer Ra works. He wants to pull you down. So the things that you say to yourself, the speech that you say to yourself, also affects your relationship with Hashem. So if a person says, I can't go to shul because I'm too depressed, a person should change the speech and say to themselves, I'm going to shul because I'm depressed. I'm going to do the opposite of what my nature is telling me to do, and I'm going to go and do it. So we know that speech has this power. And then he talks about prayer, tefillah. And prayer is speech. We're normally reading the words from the Siddur, and there's places where you can add in your own prayers as well. Also, Rabbi Nachman has this great quote, which I think I saw it in Hishtapchut HaNefesh, the outpouring of the soul, where he said, you should scream so loud that no one can hear it. And there's actually some people, I stay in Bateran usually for 3 hours or so in the morning. It's one of the great luxuries I have in life, to be able to stay in shul for many hours, davening and learning and thinking and meditating and just being in a calm space. And the minyan ends at 9:30, so I'm there for 2 hours after the minyan. And sometimes these crazy people come into the shul. This one guy was coming into the shul and started shouting the top of his lungs every day in Hebrew, an Israeli guy. Hashem, I want to destroy Hamas. I want to bring back all the hostages. I know I'm not Mashiach. I've admitted to you that I'm not Mashiach, but I feel like I'm Mashiach. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, okay? So I'm sitting there trying to learn, or say Tehillim, or whatever it is. And at some point, I say to the guy, "What's going on?" He's like, "Do you think my prayer matters? Do you think me coming here matters?" I say, "Yeah, it matters, but do you have to scream so loud? Do you think that Hashem can't hear you?" And then I tell them this idea. Rabbi Nachman says, "Scream so loud so that nobody can hear." So in the davening, we're really having a conversation with Hashem. That's what the davening is supposed to be about, since most people wouldn't be able to have a full-on conversation without some structure. We have the siddur to help us. So he says the words matter, and if you say holy words, they matter, and if you say unholy words, they matter. Then he brings in the idea of the tzadik emet, of the true tzadik, which Rabbi Nachman, that's one of the main themes in Rabbi Nachman's teachings. And he says that the true tzaddik is there to basically to set people on the straight path. And if you think of the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and dollars, there were many people that would just pass by and they would get $1 and just shove them along. But there were people that had conversations, and there are probably thousands of conversations that are recorded. Many of the videos are online, and people are looking for direction. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe is giving them direction. Should you do this? Should you do that? There was an amazing video that I saw many years ago. It was this Reform rabbi who came. There was also this missionary. I'll tell you the missionary first. The missionary comes. He gives a Jew for Jesus. He gives the Rebbe this book that he wrote. He said, "Rebbe, I proved that Christianity is the true religion, and I want to give you the book." And the Rebbe said, "Please." He said, "Do you have more copies?" He said, "Yeah, I have many copies. I wanted to hand them out to people." He said, "I want them all. Please give them all to me." So he gives them all to the Rebbe, and then he looks at the guy. He says, "You're so sick, you don't even know it. And I bless you, should be healthy, and get out of here." And then he takes them and throws them in the garbage and spits on them. It's a great video. And the guy was shocked also. And then this fascinating thing, this Reform rabbi shows up, and it was probably, it was early on because there were a few times, so it wasn't just in dollars. It must have been before dollars when he was handing out whatever. I also handed out dollars before the official Sunday dollars. And they have the video spanning, I think, at least 10 years with this guy, like multiple times of him coming. So he comes the first time and he says to the Rebbe, "I've been a Reform rabbi for whatever it was, 30, 40 years, and I realized that I made a mistake, and I want to live a life of Torah and mitzvot, and I want to leave the Reform temple, and I want to be like a chassid, like want to be a chassidim." Now you would think the Rebbe would be like, "Yeah, let's go." He says, "No, you can't leave the Reform temple." And the Rebbe says, "What are you talking about, Rebbe? That's it, I'm done. I don't want to be there anymore." He said, "Nope, you have to go back and bring everybody with you." So you see him a couple years later. He said, "Rebbe, I convinced a few families to become observant, but I don't want to be there anymore. Please, you got to stop me from being in the Reform temple." He said, "Not until everyone has left." And it goes on for like 10 years, and then at some point the guy's like, "That's it, I'm leaving." He's like, "Okay, you did enough." So the true tzaddik, the tzaddik emet, people are coming for guidance. These are just a couple of stories. One guy wasn't coming for guidance, but he got it. The other one was coming for guidance, but it wasn't what he expected. He didn't realize he was going to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, whose whole thing was shlichut and reaching out to people. So people come to the tzaddik for judgment. The relationship between the mouth and the hands, he talks about the mouth, of course, speech is connected to davening, speech is connected to faith, and davening is connected to your hands. It's kind of hard to get in the screen here. But you're supposed to really, when you start davening, you're supposed to lift your hands up like this. It says in the Shulchan Aruch. You're supposed to lift your hands. I remember there was this one guy, he came and threw his hands up in the air in shul and started going like this, and he's jumping up and down. And I know that that's how you're supposed to daven. I just can't daven like that. But when I saw it, at least I wasn't angry at him for doing it, because I knew that that's what you're supposed to do. So the hands are connected to davening, the mouth connected to speech. And speech is a way to draw down the spiritual and material blessings. We know that the simplest thing, saying Tehillim, it says in a Yom Yom, we read it just a few days ago, that if people understood the power of Tehillim, they would be saying Tehillim all the time. That Tehillim, your Tehillim goes up to heaven, it goes up to the heavenly throne, and throws itself at the feet of the throne where Hashem's presence is and begs on your behalf. That was the description of what Tehillim does. So speech is a way of drawing down shefa, of drawing down abundance. And then, let's see, he talks about each bodedut, personal prayer. Fine, we'll continue. False leaders versus true leaders. So we have plenty, we talked about this idea of having a teacher that's a rabbi, and I spent a bit of time talking about how the rabbi has to be wealthy, but not be attached to wealth, and that it gives an expanded consciousness. And I actually spoke with a wealthy friend of mine, and I said to him, you have a lot of money. I told him this idea. I said, do you feel this expanded consciousness? He said, no. And so I said, okay, so you bless me that I'll be wealthy, and I'll bless you that you should have the expanded consciousness, and then we'll be able to have a chevuta in our expanded consciousness. So he said, amen, b'ezrat Hashem. So that's the place where you're supposed to be. And you can understand that, because when a person is impoverished, they have no place to turn except to Hashem. And when a person is wealthy, they can think that they're relying on their wealth and not relying on Hashem. So if you have a teacher that is still very grounded and very humble and very connected to Hashem and davening for Hashem for everything and not taking any of this money for granted, then that's a person that can really teach you through thought and speech the closest that we can get to understanding Hashem. And I'm just leading up to where we are now. That's pretty much it. Okay, so we're going to continue. I'll give you a general idea of where we were, and we're going to continue and do a little bit of this section. We're just going to go to the next section here, and that's it for tonight. יבאר היטב מדוע וכיצד התפילה שלנו מבלבלת את הצדיקים. He's going to explain very well how and why our davening confuses the tzadikim. So the tzadikim are able, especially the tzadikim that are close to us, they're able to perceive, maybe even completely hear our prayers. There's a famous story of Reb Levi Yitzchak Berdichev. And after Shachrit is over, he turns to one of the Chassidim and he says, Shalom Aleichem. And the Chassid says, but Rebbe, I've been here all morning and Shachrit with you. He said, no, you're not. You were in Warsaw doing business. Now welcome back, Shalom Aleichem. Because, as you know, during davening, our thoughts go all over the place. Reb Shalom used to like to tell a joke. That's why Jews get all the Nobel Prizes, because during Shemona Esrei, they spend all the time thinking about solving problems instead of actually davening. But we know that the Yetzer Hara comes during davening, and apparently the tzaddikim, I'm not on this level, so I can't tell you, that tzaddikim perceive other people's prayers, and it confuses them. I also have another story. That's the story I'm going to conclude with about this. And then there's the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov, that he comes to a shul, and he comes with his gabbai, and he says, the shul is too crowded. There was nobody there. And the gabbai says, what's going on? He said, it's full of prayers. All the prayers are stuck in the ceiling. They never broke through the barrier of the ceiling because there was strife in the shul. So they're able to perceive these things. Also, I'll tell you one more story of the Baal Shem Tov, where I think this is also in Ayom Yom, that one guy says, you got angry at another guy in the Baal Shem Tov shul, and the guy says, I'm going to rip you to pieces like a piece of fish. And I guess that was a phrase in Yiddish at the time. And the Baal Shem Tov takes his hands and puts his hands on both of their shoulders, and they had a vision of the guy actually ripping the other guy to pieces like a fish. And the Baal Shem Tov says to be careful with your words. So the tzaddikim are able to perceive these things. כי כל הערבוב הדעת וכל הבלבולים וכל השטותים שיש לנו לפעמים במשך היום, all of the confusing thoughts and all of the mixed up things and all of the foolishness that we have sometimes during the day, הכל נמשך בתפילתנו. It's all drawn down into our davening. כי כל הבלבולים וכולי וכל המחשבות שחושב האדם לפעמים, because all of the confusing thoughts and all of the thoughts that a person thinks sometimes, הכל באים על דעתו בשעת התפילה דייקה. All of these things come to a person specifically in their mind when they're davening. And I don't know, maybe you've never experienced that. I experience it every day. And the question is, what do you do with those thoughts? So there's two ways to approach it. One is to try to grab it by its collar and drag it along. And the other is just to ignore it. The Alter Rebbe says to ignore it. He says, the thoughts will come, ignore it. The thoughts will come, ignore it. The thoughts will come, ignore it, and eventually it'll leave you alone. Sometimes it takes a very long time. V'akol nishma alav az daika. So these thoughts come to a person during the davening, and that's when the person has time to think about all of these thoughts that are coming in. B'sha'ah she'omed li'itpalel, and the time when a person is standing there and davening. B'bchinat ha'ketuv, as it's written, and Tehillim, mi yemalel gvurot Hashem, who is going to praise the greatness of Hashem? Yishma kol tehilato, he will hear all of his davening. Tehilato lashon irbuv. Tehilato can also mean, which the word for davening, but it can also mean mixing up or confusing. Kamo, as it's written, b'malachav yasim tahala. So he's taking the word tehila, which is davening, and changing it to tahala, which is confusion, mixing up a mess. So the angels, let's see, here's the perush, and the meaning is, Sha'afilo ha'malachim enam zakim be'einav velo ya'amin behem. I guess that even the angels don't have clarity in their eyes, and they don't believe them. V'lachen yasim ba ta'ala. And so they're going to put in the person this mixing up. That is confusion and confusing thoughts. V'zeu yishma kol tehilato. And this is the meaning of that the person will hear, yishma will hear all of their davening. Sha'az mashmi'im et atzmam daika בלבולים וערבובים אלה בשעה שעומד להתפלל ולמלל גבורות השם. It's specifically during the time when a person is davening that they're going to hear themselves bring all of these confusing thoughts, specifically at the time that they're going to serve Hashem, that they're trying to daven to Hashem. Now, we know why this is happening, because Hashem created these juxtaposing forces. We have the force of the negative energy draws its sustenance from the positive, from the holy. So in the time that we're davening, that's exactly when the negative energy is going to draw its sustenance. So you could also get to a place in your davening where you start to put yourself down. You could say, well, besides the fact that I have all of these problems, I also can't daven. And that's the Yetzer Hara coming. We know because we've studied Likutey Moharan for so long. What do? You look at the Nikudot Tovot. You look at the positive things. That's how you change your davening. If you find negative thoughts coming your way, so the first thing you say is, well, I am davening. So then the Yetzer Hara is going to say, you call this davening? You say, true, it's not the best davening, but it is davening, and I am actually doing something. And these are the conversations I have with my Yetzer Hara. This is how you fight the Yetzer Hara, by focusing on the Nikudot Tovot. The classic, the ultimate battle with the Yetzer Hara came from the Chafetz Chaim, who you would think, a tzadik on the level of the Chafetz Chaim, he has no Yetzer Hara. So what are we even talking about? But he did have a Yetzer Hara. Even the Lubavitcher Rebbe talked about his own Yetzer Hara. I mentioned this to a friend of mine who's a hardcore Chabadnik in the States. It was at the time that I was visiting the last time I was there, and I happened to come across it in my Shabbos reading, and I showed it to him in a Chabad newsletter, from Crown Heights, and he still said, no, the Rebbe didn't say that. So it was during a Simchat Torah in the 60s, and the Rebbe, he said, they recorded it, that the Rebbe said, I hear my Yetzer Hara telling me now that I should bang really hard on the table and get the Hasidim to dance. And he said, I'm not exact. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact quote. Oh, sorry. I'll turn this back on. And basically, he wants the Hasidim to dance not from a place of gaiva, not from a place of pride, only from a place of humility. Something along those lines. And that was what the story was about. But the fact that the Rebbe mentioned that he has a Yetzer Hara, even though he's this great tzadik on such a high level. So what's the story of the Chafetz Chaim? He wakes up one morning, it's winter, it's not like winter here. The houses probably weren't insulated so well in Rodin in Poland. And I don't remember when the Chafetz Chaim passed away, but the late 1800s, no, early 1900s, something like that. And it was a serious winter storm. And he gets up in the morning and starts getting ready to go to shul. And he hears his Yetzer Hara say to him, "You're an old man, what are you doing?" He says, "What are you talking about? I'm going to shul." And the Yetzer Hara tries to convince him, it's cold, and your back is hurting, and your legs hurt, and this hurts. And he just ignores the Yetzer Hara. And as they're walking in this blizzard to get to shul, the Yetzer Hara says, "You're old, you're exempt from having to go to a minyan, especially when there's a blizzard." And the Chafetz Chaim said, "Well, you're old and you're up before me, so if you can get up and you can walk in this storm, then I can learn from you, and I can also walk in this storm and make it to shul." So these are the battles that we have with the Yetzer Hara, and these are the thoughts that come to us during davening. V'hu b'shtei b'chinot, and this is in two parts. Klomar, that is to say, Yeshnam shtei sibot madua ba'im ha'yerbuvim va'binbulim davka be'emtza tefillah. There are two reasons why these confusing thoughts come specifically in the middle of davening. O sheba'im lehitaken, either they're coming to get fixed, mechimat shero'im shemitpalel b'chavana karaoi. So these confusing thoughts are coming to you in order to be fixed because you're davening with a proper intention. Alkein ba'im lehitaken. That's two tafs there. Lehitaken. So they're coming to be repaired, fixed. Ki akshav hu hazman shecholim lehitaken. Because this is the time that your thoughts can be fixed. Rabbi Nachman has a lesson, I think it's Chaf Gimel, in the second part of Likutey Moharan, where he talks about in the time when you're joyous, when everybody's dancing around the bima, or you're at a wedding, or whatever it is, to bring in some negative thoughts, because they'll be elevated by the joy. But not to allow the negative thoughts to pull you out of the joy, but rather to elevate the negative thoughts through the joy. So everybody has to judge for themselves what they can handle. Here, I think I just make it a little less hot, and then maybe Meira won't be freezing, and I'll be somewhat okay. Yeah, I'll turn it down a little bit. Okay, see. Okay, so sometimes these thoughts are coming to you when you're davening, so that they can be fixed. Ki yesh behem nitzatzot kedoshim shetzchim tikun, because they have holy sparks in them that need fixing. So these are the thoughts that are negative thoughts. They want to be fixed in the time that you're davening, so they come and they present themselves. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end here. I guess if I really push through it. ועל ידי שהאדם מתפלל בכוונה כראוי ומתגבר על בלבולים והמחשבות הזרות ומסיח דעתו מהם, and through a person davening with the proper intention and encouraging and strengthening themselves to overcome these foreign thoughts. And by the way, I don't remember which Rebbe it was, somebody came and said to the Rebbe, I have machshavot zarot, I have foreign thoughts. And the Rebbe said, well, if they're your thoughts, they're not foreign thoughts. They're not somebody else's thoughts. V'hu meteken otam, and the proper davening fixes these thoughts. Oh, b'bchina acheret lehefech, sometimes it's a different attribute, completely. Mechimat she'eino ra'oi litpalel, because the person is not davening in a proper way. For example, if a person just says, okay, fine, I have to say Birkot HaShachar, so I'll just say them. And then at that time, the thoughts are coming to you, so they're not going to be fixed at that time. Sheba'im lebelbeloto mitfilato. Then those thoughts are actually coming to confuse a person and knock them off. Al kain, al kol panim, ben kach uben kach. Nonetheless, whether it's this way or it's that way, ben im ba'im lihitaken, או בין אם באים לקלקל, whether they're coming to fix or whether they're coming to cause damage. בשעת התפילה דייקה באים כל הערבובים והבלבולים של האדם. We know that during davening all these thoughts, confusing thoughts, are going to come to a person. שנשמעים אצלו אז, that they're going to hear those thoughts specifically in the middle of 18. ובשביל זה נקראים הבלבולים והערבובים תהלה כנ"ל. And that's why they're called tahala. I don't remember the translation of tahala, but it's like a big commotion instead of tehila, which is davening. מחימת שהם באים דייקה בעת התפילה והתהילה כנ"ל. Because they come specifically during davening and praising Hashem as mentioned above. וכל התפילות האלו עם כל הערבובים באים אל הצדיקים, and all of these confusing thoughts that we have, and all of these thoughts that we have during davening, they come to the tzadikim. כי צריך כל אדם לקשר את עצמו לצדיקי הדור, because everybody has to connect themselves to the tzadikim of the generation, ולהביא להם את תפילותיו, and to bring their davening to the tzadik. So it might not be actually going and talking to a tzadik. Here, for example, we have, if I'm going to explain it in the way that we can use the Likutey Moharan, we have Rabbi Nachman, even though he died in 1810, we have his teachings and we can connect ourselves to the tzaddik through the teachings. And during davening, we can say, Hashem, please help me to fix these thoughts in a kosher way in my davening. And that's connecting yourself to the tzaddik of the generation in the time of Rabbi Nachman. Ki tzadikim mehem bebchinat Mashiach. The tzadikim are connected to Mashiach. She'alav ba'im kol hatfilot lahalotan. That to the tzaddik comes, or to Mashiach, everyone's davening is going to come to, it comes to the tzaddikim and it also comes to Mashiach. Bebchinat HaKatuv, as it's written in Yeshayahu, Utihilati echetom lach. My davening, I forgot the translation of this. I think it was to be angry. Hare ha-tahala, the confusion, shehi tfilah, which is davening, bal livchinat chotam, comes from the aspect of chotem, of the nose, dahainu shebechol bekol tihilot ba'im lebchinat Mashiach sheyesh batzadik. So what he wants to say here, and he's going to say in a second, he's saying that all the davening comes to the Mashiach, which is basically coming to the tzaddikim. What is special about Mashiach? Mashiach is going to be on the level that he doesn't use logic and reason and sight or hearing. He uses smell. Mashiach will be able to smell the truth. And apparently when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a certain smell. There's a story, I don't remember what tzaddik it was. Maybe it was Chavetz Chaim, maybe it was the Rishner, I don't know, maybe you know which tzaddik it was. That the Chassidim come running, Mashiach is here. He opens the window and he smells and he says, Mashiach is not here. And they say, okay, Rabbi, how do you know Mashiach is not here? He said, because in my room it smells like Mashiach, and outside it didn't smell like Mashiach. So if it smelled like it does in my room, outside I would know Mashiach is here. So that's an example of the tzaddikim and Mashiach. The tzaddikim are filling the role of Mashiach. And all of the davening are coming through the tzaddikim. They're not actually coming through them, they're perceiving them, they're hearing them. Shu bechinat chotem, which is an aspect of the nose. Bebchinat HaKatuv b'Mashiach is written about Mashiach. Ruach apenu Mashiach Hashem. Mashiach ubchinat ruach af. Mashiach is the attribute of smelling from the nose. Ki Mashiach hu moreach v'da'in. Because Mashiach, he can smell and then make a judgment. Mariach ba'adam b'yodea im hu chayav u zakai v'danoto. He smells a person and he knows whether the person is guilty or innocent, and with that he judges the person. That's from Sanhedrin. Hare shetiyeh leMashiach et b'chinat hareach. The Mashiach is going to have the attribute of smelling. והריח הוא בחותם, and the smell is from the nose. נמצא שתהיה לו בבחינת חותם, so he's going to have the attribute of smelling, ומכיוון שהתפילות הם בבחינת חותם, ומשיח הוא בבחינת חותם, so he says, and since davening is connected to this word chotem, and I guess the nose, and Mashiach is connected to the nose, לכן התפילות באות למשיח שיעלה אותם. So they come to Mashiach who's going to elevate them. וכשהתפילות באות למשיח, יש לו כוח להעריכן ולהרגיש בהם את דרגתו של המתפלל. And when the davening comes to Mashiach, he is going to be on the level that he's going to be able to smell and feel the level that the person that's davening is on. וכל זהו בחינת הכתוב במשיח, and all of this is connected to what it says about Mashiach. ויריחו ביראת Hashem. He's going to breathe the fear of Hashem into us. היינו בתפילות, that is into our davening. שהם בחינת יראת Hashem היא תתהלל. The fear, the awe of Hashem will be a prayer. שהתהילה והתפילה הם בבחינת יראת Hashem. When we daven and we praise Hashem, it comes from a place of awe of Hashem. I prefer awe instead of fear. I think that's the meaning of it. כי התzadik שהוא בחינת משיח הוא מריח ומרגיש בתפילות שמקבל בהם כדי שיעלה אותם. Mashiach, which is the aspect of smelling, he smells and he feels our davening and is able to elevate them, receive our davening and elevate our davening. Et kol achad ve'achad kefi ma shehu, each person according to their level, ki kol ha'irbuvim shen kol achad hem betoch hatfila kanal, because all of the confusing thoughts that we have, that everybody has, come in the time of davening. Nimtza sha'atzadikim hem sovlim tsar al yedei tefilot shelanu. And so, as a result, the tzadikim suffer pain from our davening. Shemebanbalim otam kanal, because they confuse the tzadikim, or we bring in confusing thoughts into our davening, and the davening that we confuse comes to the tzadik. Ubishvil zeh tzarich lekabel tochachatam af shemevizim otanu kanal. So we talked about this last week, that the tzadik will rebuke us, and sometimes rebuke us in a way that it's embarrassing for us. But the reason that we need to accept the rebuke of the tzaddik is because the tzaddik is sensing what we need to fix, and just telling us straight out what we need to fix. And if we're on the level that we can listen to the tzaddik and accept from the tzaddik, then we can fix things very quickly instead of having to go through suffering. And by receiving their rebuke, anu zochim la'asot tzedakah v'chesed, we merit to do righteousness and kindness. Ubekoach achesed kotzrim umavdilim et hamalchut kedusha me'arba hamalchuyot shel sitra achra. And the power of the kindness that we receive from the rebuke of the tzaddik cuts off and separates the attribute of malchut, of holiness, from the four kingdoms of the negative energy. Meaning that it separates, it basically knocks us back into where we came from. Rabbi Nachman has a quote, I think we learned in one of the lessons, what's a good memory? And Michael Abraham, if you remember, he used to say this all the time, what's a good memory? Olam haba, the world to come. And he got that from Rabbi Nachman. And the meaning is that don't forget where you're going. Like, we're not really supposed to remember from before we were born. We're supposed to remember that we came from the world to come, we're going back to the world to come, and that this world is temporary. This morning, it's the first time it happened to me during Shmoneh Esrei, and it led to a very long Shmoneh Esrei. Every word I understood in Shmoneh Esrei. It was like shining for me. Every word was lighting up. And like, that's the meaning, and that's the meaning, and that's the meaning. There was so much packed into Shmoneh Esrei. And one of the things that I noticed, it kept showing up in the beginning, I mean, of course we say it, but do you really notice it? It talks about Tchiyat HaMeitim. It says Hashem is going to bring back the dead. And he promises that he's going to bring back the dead. And we can be sure that he's going to bring back the dead. And let's praise Hashem for bringing back the dead. And I thought, wow, that's like a real obsession with bringing back the dead. Can't just like the dead be dead and leave them alone? But the point that I understood this morning was that we can think that this world is everything. And for us, bringing back the dead, that is totally impossible. Nobody's going to cemeteries and bringing back the dead. But the dead are not really dead. Yes, they're physically dead, but their souls are not dead. And to remind us that this world is not everything, we have right there in the beginning of Shemona Esrei this counterintuitive idea of bringing back the dead as a reminder that this is not really it. This is not the whole thing. That yes, Hashem is going to bring back the dead. Put that in your brain. Try to, one of my kids says, roll that up and smoke it. Try to roll that one up and smoke it. And there was so much in Shemona Esrei. Okay, so that's where I want to leave it there. So I'll tell you a very short story because we only have like 2 minutes left. And Shalom Aleichem to everyone that joined us, that I didn't get to say hi to. Yonasan and the Finces and Michael and Ron and everyone else. So I wanted to find a story about tzadik that couldn't sleep. So the Seer Lubin, of course, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak Horovitz, who lived from 1745 to 1815. In my podcast, I started adding dates because I figure it's important to know when these rabbis lived. So he couldn't sleep at night. And it was like midnight, and he was probably up saying Tikkun Chatzot, the prayer that you say for the restoring of the temple. And if you wake up at midnight, I don't normally say Tikkun Chatzot. I don't think I ever said it. Maybe once tried it for like 5 minutes. And he calls his attendants over, Reb Chaim and Reb Moshe, and he says to them, there's somebody in this town who's committing a grave sin, and I can't sleep. So go figure it out. So the two of them look at one another. It's midnight. What are they going to figure out at midnight? They start walking around Lublin, looking for some Jew that's doing a transgression. And they eventually start asking everybody that, the few people that are up so late at night. And then they see that there's a very wealthy Jew, Reb Shimon, who was like the gvir, the big supporter of the community. And he's sitting there late at night with a candle by his window doing something, like doing some late night accounting. And so one of the gabbais, he stands there and he watches him for a while, and he thinks it's kind of strange that he's up so late at night. And he goes to one of the guy next door who happened to be a bookbinder. And he says to him, and the bookbinder was also up. He wasn't able to sleep at night. He said, what's Reb Shimon doing this accounting late at night? He says, Reb Shimon, you don't know. He lent my father money, and my father died. And we paid back all the money, but we never seem to pay off the debt. Every time we tell him we want to know how much is left, he says we didn't pay off the debt. And now he wants to take our property because we share a wall. And so they understood that this was what was going on. And obviously the guy was cheating, and he wasn't just cheating the neighbor, he was cheating, doing all kinds of things he wasn't supposed to do in business. So they knock on his door and they say, come, the Seer Levin wants to see you right now. He says, now? It's midnight. He said, now. So they take him to the Seer Levin, and he says, is it true that they paid you the loan and you never allowed them to pay it off? And he said, it's true. So he said, okay, you have to go in front of a Beit Din and admit it right now. He said, right now? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. What kind of Beit Din? He said, right now, because nobody can sleep at night because of you. I can't sleep at night, the bookkeeper can't sleep at night, you can't sleep at night. So he gets together his Beit Din, and he said, I'm guilty, and they already paid off the loan, and I'm going to fix everything that I did. And then finally, after that was all corrected, the Seer Lublin, by the way, the Seer Lublin said that the heavens are disturbed tonight. He was also in Shemayim that they couldn't sleep at night. I don't know what they do in Shemayim, if they're sleeping or not. But after that was taken care of, the Seer Lublin, Baruch Hashem, could finally sleep that night because the transgression had been fixed. So just a little example of how the tzaddikim suffer from our bilbulim and our confusing ideas. Okay. Oh, look at that. Yael got in a comment. Sleepless in Lublin. Okay, shikoach everyone. Ay, 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 ay.